we start with the planets, and now we have no planets at all in our introduction of the four goddesses. So first I want to give an overview of the topics I want to handle for the four goddesses. I start with the introduction of these four asteroids. They are named after Greek goddesses, and you will be introduced by the names and by the symbols. And also I go on with the astronomical discovery of these four asteroids and other facts about the asteroids, where they are positioned in the cosmos, and some facts about astronomy. Then I go further with the mythology. Some of you know already that I do the planets as well, with the mythology behind that, because it's always interesting to know where the names came from. So these came mostly from Greek mythology, as we know, and the Western astrology, based on the Hellenistic astrology mainly. And we want to know more about the goddesses or asteroids as female energies, because they are all four, I talk about, they are all female energies, also for men, of course. So afterwards, I go with the astrological symbols and interpretations. And for the interpretation of the position of sign and house of these four asteroids, I go with a chart example. This will be mainly my presentation. Do you have any questions? Okay. So the four goddesses I talk about are named after Greek mythology, and they are CERES, with the symbol you see right there, where we talk about later. PALLAS Athene, or Pallas, simply Pallas, with the symbol you see here. JUNO, the third goddess I talk about, with another symbol. In the charts, you can also find them. And VESTA, which is symbolized by a fire, by an open fire. So these four will be topic of my presentation. Some facts about the astronomy. The space, you can see here in the picture, the space between Mars, which is symbolized here, it's a heliocentric view. So the sun is in the center, Mercury, Venus, Earth, Moon, and Mars are here. The space between Mars, and Jupiter, which is described here on his orbit. The space between these two paths, you can say paths, is the so-called asteroid belt. And here you find as well our four goddesses, asteroids, CERES, JUNO, PALLAS, and VESTA. So they are fluently going on their path between Mars and Jupiter. And this space is called the asteroids belt. You know the Kuiper belt, which is Pluto and beyond, and this is the asteroid belt. During history, the astronomers have found massive numbers of planetoids and asteroids, which is a little bit synonymous, in this space. So there are thousands of them, and the detection of much more than only these four we talk about is still ongoing. So there are a lot of, let's say, parts of planets. So it's also discussed that they are formed by some different hypotheses. So one was, the first one, when they were detected, they thought that they are splashed from a larger planet into fragments, which can of course be the case because they are so small and not really round like the planets, but have different forms. But this hypothesis was exchanged by modern astronomers who said that the asteroid belt was mainly related by a planetary formation in general for the solar system, which is defined by a nebula hypothesis. That means, in principle, that gas and another substance is in the cosmos, and they clashed and clumped together so that they form the planets. And now people think that the scientists think that the asteroids are built in the same way. So they are not a clash from or broken from a former big planet. The reason why the asteroids in this asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter are still not forming any planet, but they still stay in this little formation of asteroids, of smaller pieces, so to say, is that they were strongly perturbed by Jupiter's gravity and stayed fragment, therefore. So the Jupiter, the big gas giant here around, we already talked about Jupiter in a former call, is prohibiting that these asteroids in this whole belt can get out of the sphere of Jupiter, can get out of the orbit and be more like other planets. For this nebula hypothesis, they can build more planets as well. But this is somehow inhibited by Jupiter being there. So he is the guardian of the asteroid belt, and he inhibit that these are building bigger planets, so to say. This is what I know in principle, what I think is necessary to know about this belt where we have CERES, JUNO, PALLAS, and VESTA in the cosmos. So we also see here in this picture, I can talk about that as well, that the Jupiter is also followed by asteroids. On the orbit of Jupiter, we have the so-called Trojans, which are also asteroids. And they are even forming families of Trojans, where Eris, which was one of the last asteroid we talk about, or the last planet we talk about in our Planet and Psyche, is part of the Trojans here on the Jupiter orbit. And they will never clash with Jupiter because they are almost 60 degrees from the gas giant, from this planet away. So they manage to not clash with Jupiter, and they have their own free orbit here, keeping the distance. So this is only a little bit explanation that there are more asteroids, not only in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. Okay. The discovery of the four asteroids were done around Uranus detection, which was, of course, not seen by the naked eye, but there they use already telescopes. So Uranus was discovered around 1800, in the century of 1800. And afterwards, these four planets were discovered or seen one after the other. The first one was CERES, which is in the moment also defined as a dwarf planet, so the biggest one of the asteroids that changed over time. But when it was discovered, it was an asteroid, and it was discovered in 1801 by an Italian astronomer who is called Giuseppe Piazzi. The next one, just 1 year later, was Pallas. Pallas was smaller than CERES and was discovered by Heinrich Wilhelm Olbers, which is a German astronomist, as far as I know. And the next one was JUNO, 1804, also by a German, Karl Ludwig Harding. And the last one, which we talk about here, I know there are more, which are also considered in astrology, but I will talk only about these four, is VESTA, which was discovered in 1807 by Olbers again. So symbolically, these four asteroids are representing a principle of female archetypes. So we have already learned about the moon, Venus, and also Lilith, which are in a form also very important in a chart to interpret as female energies. And we are used to these more or less. But for the asteroids, we are not so much used to them. And so you find seldom an interpretation about these four goddesses in a personal chart reading. As to explain what an archetype really means, because we know the zodiac signs and the zodiac circle are also called after archetypes. An archetype definition we can use, there are more of course, but we can use this. An archetype is defined as a universal thought, a prototype of the collective unconscious. Having this in mind when we talk about these four will be helpful. In mythology, these four goddesses were equal to the god of the gods, to Jupiter or Zeus, to Neptune and to Pluto. So they are not really very unimportant. They are really important in the mythology, the stories, and we will hear about the stories behind all the four ones in a minute. In astrology, the moon, as I said, is the mother, the love of the mother to the children, and Venus as the lover to the love partner, or to animals, to anything that is that is living. These are presented as the female energies. Very long time we use them in the horoscope. But these other four, CERES, PALLAS ATHENE, JUNO, and VESTA, they have a little more deeper aspect of the female energy because they represent aspects of power, respect, justice, and equality, which are new creative female energies, which were not so much lived by women and men in the very old history, in the ancient times, let's say. But they are nevertheless important, and we can interpret them in a chart, which is very interesting and impressive as well. Okay, now I go on with the mythology of the goddesses. So, as you know, or may know, these four sisters, VESTA, JUNO, PALLAS, and CERES, which are already seen here with all the symbols thereon, PALLAS with this and CERES with this, so you can get more familiar with them. They used to be in the mythology, in the Greek mythology, they used to be the sisters of Jupiter, or in Hellenistic name, it's Zeus. And the mother was Rhea, and the father was, of course, Saturn, or Kronos, in the Hellenistic history. And all these four, except one, were really born by Saturn and Rhea and were really sisters of Jupiter. One is an exception. I will address this later. So all of the progeny was eaten by Kronos because he doesn't want any competitors. And so in the history, in the mythology, he ate all the children, all his children, he ate them. And this is another story, but in some way, Jupiter could escape, and he was not eaten by Kronos. So he was able, in the end, to give them a new life because he released all his siblings, all these four and others, out of the stomach of Kronos, so that they could be reborn again. This so far the context of these four sisters. We start with the mythology of Ceres, and Ceres is also called Demeter later on. greater, to be grateful for her. She is the goddess of, she's seen as the goddess of agriculture. She is grain, crops, fertility, and motherly relationships, which are associated with Ceres. And you can see a nice, very famous sculpture of her. She's also taking the grain in her arms, so you can see what she's standing for. Now we start to talk about the story of Ceres. Ceres, as we said already, is the daughter of Saturn and the sister of Zeus, and the daughter of Saturn and Rhea, and the sister of Zeus, but also the granddaughter of Gaia. Gaia is the earth goddess. So it happens that she got her daughter Persephone, and she was a very beautiful little daughter, and she was really loving her mother, and her mother loves her, and it was really a big daughter-mother relationship. But then Pluto, who lives in the underworld, we know also as Hades, came and robbed her and made her his wife and queen in the underworld. So Ceres was very sad afterwards, and she couldn't understand that she was not anymore with Persephone and she lost her. So she started to show her sadness by being dressed in black and neglected her duties for the nature, because she was already named as the goddess of agriculture. So she's more or less responsible for the green plants, for the growing nature. And because of that, the mankind gets threatened, because all the nature was going down. There was no flower anymore, no plant anymore, because she neglected her duty and her work because of her sadness. And so Jupiter saw that, and as he's responsible for his sister, he was forced to send Mercury, or Hermes in the Greek mythology, to Hades, or Pluto, for asking to free Persephone, for making the world green again. It is a longer story, but it was obvious that he didn't want to give her without any idea or strategy behind that. So Pluto has given her kernels of pomegranate, so that Persephone from now on could live part of the year still with him. So it happens that Ceres enjoys each year from spring to autumn to being together with her daughter Persephone. And so in this time, we know this is the season which brings flowers, fruits, and cereals. But in the opposite, when Persephone needs to go back to the underworld, living with Pluto, the world became cold in autumn, and even without any plants and no water, and really a very famine world, with plants that died and earth that was dry and bare during the winter time. So this is also the bearing, as you can see, or it's symbolized by the bearing of the seasons as well. This is, in short, the story in the mythology for Ceres. And you can always associate or think about or relate to this story when we talk about the astrology afterwards. Further, we go to Pallas Athene. And she is really the exception I talk about, because she was not eaten by Cronus, but she was somehow told about a different story. First, she was the goddess of wisdom, handcraft, and warfare. That's what she stands for. Of course, there is a little contradiction between wisdom, handcraft, and warfare, but we will see what this kind of goddess is standing for in the feminine energy. So she was regarded as a patrona or protectress, which is the feminine word for protector, of cities in Greece, and especially for Athens, which makes her the Pallas Athene. So Pallas became Pallas Athene because the Athens citizens really worshipped her for her protection. She is standing, as you see the sculpture here, very upright and very proud and very strong. So she is more or less the women, or the role of the women we are calling the Amazon, or the intellectual woman. This will also be more clear when we hear her story. Athena was believed to have been born from the forehead of her father Zeus. How could that happen? Well, Metis, who is a sea goddess, got pregnant from Zeus after rejecting his sexual approaches. As we know, Jupiter is always liking to have many women, and he also raped some women, so he is really a bad guy in the Greek mythology. And after Metis rejected him, it was said by Gaia and Uranus, which are the grandfathers, that the daughter from Metis will be somebody who will be equal to Zeus. So she's not really a sister of Zeus. Zeus at Metis, because of his sexual approaches, which didn't happen that well, and then she got pregnant from him because he raped her, and she was eaten by Zeus. But after that, he didn't digest Metis very well, so he got a horrible headache, so the mythology, and his skull was split by a double X, so is the saying. And this is, of course, the X is also the matriarchal symbol, or the symbol also in the genetology, the X. And out of his skull, the Pallas Athene was born, or roses from this head, with a shining golden armor. So this is the saying. And because of this, she's not really a sister of like the other sisters we talk about, but she is bared out of the head of Zeus. So this is already a symbol that, as the oracle from Gaia and Uranus was saying, that she is more equal to Zeus, because she was not really with him in the same regarding like the other sisters. So Pallas owned also in the later on in the description a masculine and a feminine aspect. She is strong not only as a man, as a young man, but also as a virgin, as you can see her here. So this whole shining goddess reminds us also from the Babylonian Ishtar, who is also a goddess corresponding to our Venus, and Isis, which is an Egyptian protective deity. She is also identified with Ishtar and Venus in the end. So this is really interesting because this makes her more equal to Jupiter. Juno is also, her name is also Hera in the Hellenistic mythology. And she is standing for the goddess of the gods. So even a more powerful lady here. She's also standing for protection, is a special counselor of the state, and stands for principle of matrimony, protection, and rights of wives as lover and partner. So this is more the partner in a matrimony. So the wife, really. This is what she symbolizes in the Greek mythology. And the story behind that, as said, she's a sister of Jupiter and also his wife at the same time, because Jupiter was also really tricky about that again. Because when he one day saw Juno, he was mad at her and he wanted her. So he turned into a cuckoo, let himself be soaked through a thunderstorm, and injured himself. Then he wants to get shelter by his sister's cloak and shivered so that she wanted to protect him, of course, because she didn't know that this was Jupiter in the figure of a cuckoo. Then Jupiter turned to his true form again and raped her. To avoid the shame that she got pregnant with his own brother, her own brother, Jupiter promised Juno to marry her. That was to take the shame away. And Juno shared the power of the heaven up from then with Jupiter. So she was also an equal goddess to Jupiter. Besides Venus, Aphrodite, Juno, and Hera, which are synonyms always, she was the only official married woman of the Olympus, from the progeny of the Olympus. So Juno remained also loyal to Jupiter, which is also a wife's position. She's the wife of Jupiter, so she remained loyal. But Jupiter was, of course, not that loyal, and he got involved, as we know from the history, in a lot of love affairs. So he was unfaithful and not loyal at all. But he always consulted Juno's advice because he understood that she is somewhere equal to him because she became his wife and he married her. But of course, he never trusted her completely because of his lifestyle. That's completely clear. And she got a lot of strategies to stay by his side during the matrimony. So this is a little bit the idea and the symbolism behind Juno as the wife. The last one is Vesta. She's also called Hestia or Hestia. Well, she's standing for the hearth, for home and family. And she's a real Roman goddess. So in this case, there's not so much history or a story or background behind Vesta. We cannot find even a very impressive story like for the other three we talked about. So she's more like a timid goddess. She is the god of the hearth, which is also symbolizing the body, and the sacred flame, which is the inner flame, the inner life, the life energy as such. But as well, she's also a spiritual, religious, and cultural person with values that she symbolizes here, and for the social community. So she is more the nun or the priestly woman type, the virgin, the pure virgin, which makes her, of course, more the sister. So she's very loyal to the women. In the mythology, we have also the saying that she's a daughter from Saturn and Rhea, and is called Hestia by the Greeks. So she belongs as the oldest sister of Jupiter, like Ceres and Juno, to the first generation, as I said already, from the Olympic gods. Vesta remained virgin. So we can only see some associations with Vesta in the Roman Vesta cult, which was in the Roman Empire time, where she was the goddess of the hearth fire, and she was gratitude. She had a gratitude, and she was also symbolized as there was an altar which was erected for her in the center of every house in Rome during the Roman Empire, and also a central public hearth in every city in Italy or in the First Empire. Venus became the epitome of the cohesion in family, community, and the state. One of the kings of Rome, the second king, Numa Pompilius, built a temple in her honor. Responsibility for the constant burning of the holy fire, which is of course symbolizing also the life energy in our interpretation, that guaranteed for the Roman Empire security. So she was born as a priestess and is staying a priestess without having any husband or any boyfriend or any partner, any loving partner. These priestesses which are chosen as holy servants in the age of 12 among the loveliest and most excellent girls in Rome, were called the Vesta virgins. And in real lifetime, so we have proof of that in the ancient times. And Vestals had a very rigid life, a very timid life, because they take the vow of chastity, because the fire is the highest purity, and they were considered untouchable. So they needed to live in the space where they have their temple, and they needed to live a life very like nuns, without having any context to the outer worlds, but they are worshipped a lot by the citizens of Rome, and also by the kings and queens in the Roman Empire. This is a little bit an outlook of Vesta. What is her meaning? And we can see her here with a snake going down, and also with a wheel, because it's also said that she is going like a donkey. It's also symbolized by the donkey, which was going around a wheel to get the grain out of the plants. So this is also a symbolism of the worship, of the work that Vesta is doing. So we will have that as a symbol and in the interpretation later on for Vesta in the chart, in the astrological meaning. Okay, this is the mythology, which is of course not sufficient. It's not full. You can also read more about all these four goddesses in literature. Now the astrology of the four asteroids. So Ceres, as we see the symbol here, symbolized in the chart and also on the sky by astronomers, is a sickle. This symbol associated with agriculture, as we said already, and she is mainly responsible for the mother energy as the big mother. So this makes her also associated with certain zodiac signs in the zodiac circle. We can see that Ceres, we can state that Ceres is ruling Cancer, because Cancer is also seen as the universal mother who nurtures and loves and leads with instinct. So there is a relationship between Cancer and Ceres. In the Scorpio-Taurus axis, there's also a symbolism for Ceres, because Ceres rules the axis between Scorpio and Taurus, which also means that there is a nurturing or a protectism of Taurus and Scorpio in this axis. So the lessons of sympathy and rejection is symbolized between this polarity, and also the ability to absorb grief and worries, as well as the principle of sharing, which is of course Taurus topic or Taurus archetype. So there's also a similarity between this axis. And last, we can also say Ceres rules Virgo, because she is focusing on nutrition, as we said already, on food safety. It's very often that a very pregnant position of Ceres means that this person is working in food or in food-related professions, like food safety, saving the food for the whole human race, for all the humankind, which is of course something we can break down, but it's a profession that you can often find by Ceres ruled charts. And of course, it's also talks about work routines, as Virgo is also the big worker in the zodiac. She's always overseeing everything of the detail, and she's also associated with the sixth house with a work routine, daily routine. So this is a little bit an idea where this Ceres is associated with, to get an idea of the energy. We can also make a little, I will do that later on. I go on with, I can start with CERES. Okay, CERES in the chart. I have a little picture here where we have all the 4 goddesses in a real chart so that I can talk about the positions only by seeing this chart. CERES, as we see the sickle here, is positioned, as you can see in this chart, in the sign of Taurus, and also on the descendant, symbolized here. So this is the position of CERES in this chart. When CERES is located in Taurus, that means security in the physical body is very important to the CERES. And this person will also do a lot of work in self-sufficiency. So they will get self-worth, which is also a theme of Taurus, when they work self-sufficient. So they will do anything to get their self-love and self-worth out of their work. So they work hard, and they also want to dedicate their work and their whole influence to something that is nurturing and that gives them a self-sufficiency as well. This is the meaning when it's in the sign of Taurus. It can also have a down road or going down in the shadow side when it's an over identity with Ceres in Taurus. Then we have a lot of centered by the material world, which is an earth sign, Taurus, of course, also a very main topic and theme for Taurus. And when it's over-identified with the material world, then that can lead to imbalance, like they can feel material losses and they can feel the fear of material loss, these people, with this position. Well, it's also positioned in the H6, in the house 6, we have the daily routines. So the personal engagement of this person will be in daily routines and function and really in family situations. So they will give a strong focus on service in nutrition. As I said already, they can work in health and nutrition as a real profession dedicated to this work in this area of their work. And they will find a lot of work and also self-worth out of this work when they do that, when they function in daily routines and they work as well on service, which can very well deal with nutrition and health. So this is a very, let's say, it's a very dominant position for Ceres in this chart because it's not only on the angle, but it's also centered in the earth sign, which is of course very earthbound. So you will feel the Ceres really in your material life, let's say. Okay, so let's go on to the next. The next one is Pallas Athene. Pallas Athene, you can see the symbol is a spear. It should be a spear. So Pallas Athene is, as I said already in the mythology background, the protector. So the spear is the symbol of the protector. And you have in mind, she's born out of the head of Jupiter. So she is the intellectual one. Associated with the zodiacs, you can say that Libra is very well a zodiac sign that is the energy of giving balance and justice. Leo is also a sign which is associated with Pallas because it's a royal sign. And through that, this sign inspires the tribe with creativity. And Pallas was also seen as and worshipped by the Athene citizens, as you know, as a real royal deity. And Aquarius, astonishingly, is also associated with Pallas because there's the energy that treats, this is the energy symbolized that treats the humans equally, which is also an idea of Pallas, and fights, if necessary, for the rights of an equal treatment of each of the humans, where she has the protection, or where she is dominating, where she is guiding all the people, where she is the royal goddess for. So in principle, you can say in summary, Pallas archetype combines the interaction between creative impulses coming from Leo, transpersonal and social interests, which is equalized or symbolized by Aquarius, and finally, the balance or binding power of Libra. So she's, as we say, the daughter, when we have the female energy to address this energy to some relationships. So this will be the daughter energy, serving the mother and serving in her youth. So this is associated. Pallas in the chart, as I said, I have one example. Pallas in the chart, you can see Pallas here, based in the sign of Pisces in this chart. And this is a location where the person is predestined for spiritual healing through dream journeys or visionary meditation, because it's a very visional and watery and dreamy sign, Pisces. So they can be talented in art, and especially in art which deals with light, spherical music, or photography, where light plays a very important role, because it's like a bodhisattva as well, like an enlightened female fighter. So this is the energy. And her wisdom is, of course, the compassion, that she really is compassionate for spiritual healing, and also to give this to other people, the spiritual healing idea. Well, in H4, this is even more underlined in this chart of this position of Pallas, because this talks about an empath. So they are really able to feel and sense the emotional situation of other people. And this is used not in a bad way, but in a good way, in a positive way, as a subliminal source of wisdom. So they can feel and they can do good things and great things by helping people who they understand and feel as an empath, which is, of course, also causing a lot of vulnerability for this Pallas position, as you can imagine. They further have the talent to create atmosphere. And this is mainly happening in the H4, in the fourth house, in home, and also on vacation. They can create a lot of coziness and a nice atmosphere with this position. Okay, next one is Juno, which is symbolized by a scepter. This is very easy symbol, you can see that. And she is, the energy of Juno is the energy of the wife, as I already said, because she was the husband, the only husband of Zeus. He was forced to marry her because of the shame, because he raped her, and she's a sister, in fact. And so he needed to marry her. So she's the wife energy. And the scepter is the symbol of the royal dignity, because, as I said, she was seen as the wife of Jupiter, the god of the goddesses in Greek mythology. So she got really the royal dignity, being equal with Zeus in a way. The associated zodiacs, you can see Libra again. Libra standing for Venus, and also for matrimony, for binding energy, for the beauty in a relationship, but also being able to idealize a partnership. So she had to idealize, had to idealize a lot, with such an unloyal, very flippy husband like Jupiter was. So you can imagine that this energy was very important for her life as a wife. And Scorpio is also associated from the zodiac signs because of the ability to trust radically, to trust 100%, and to be really with a committed partner. Once they commit with a partner, this is Scorpio standing for, they really trust and stay loyal with a partner, even if everything is destroyed around. And even if the partnership is not working out well, but they stay because they once committed with a partner, they stay with it. So this is also an associated sign for the Juno. And as you know, in the zodiac, Scorpio and Libra are subsequent signs. Libra is coming before Scorpio. So this makes the two signs correlated as a semi-sextile in the aspects. And this connects the both signs. One as the matrimony, and also as second as the completion. But it also talks about semi-sextile. As you know, they are a little uncomfortable. They are not knowing each other. They are different in energies, as Libra and Scorpio are very well different in energies, as you already see in the description, and you have in mind when you think about this archetype of Libra and Scorpio. So there's also for Juno a big frustration. Why? Because in her matrimony with this flippy boy, with this ever young, staying, interested in other women, Zeus or Jupiter, she was unable, and she faced the inability of having a full potential in her matrimony with Jupiter. So she could see that this full potential couldn't be an ideal partnership because of the behavior of Jupiter, and she was unable to change that, and she needs to live with this big frustration in the matrimony. So this is the energy of Juno in a astrological thinking with the zodiacs. So we can also see in the chart again where Juno is sitting. Juno is in this chart. As I said, they are very well aligned up into this chart. And Juno with this symbol is sitting or located in the sign of Aries in this case. And when we have a Juno, which is standing for a partner, for a love partner, for the wife, which is really bind together with a ceremony, and nowadays also with a certificate. So this makes the placement very important for relationships. This Juno is important for relationships like love partners or partners for life partners. And with Aries here, this talks about the need for independence and freedom in the sign, because this is a very freedom-loving and self-standing and independent sign, Aries. And of course, it's also a Marsian energy, which tends to be very low-tempered. And so there are also outbursts of temper with this position in the sign, which is kind of releasing the energy, the Mars energy of an Aries with this position. And this is, of course, because of the frustration in a partnership. So they will find a lot of release when they when they lose temper in finding autonomy in a couple. This can also be seen when you see the sign in Aries, this asteroid, this goddess in Aries. On the other side, they can also attract dominant partners, which will make it even more complicated, because then they are dominated and they are more the submissive of a partner, which is, of course, also not balanced. And there's also a lot of frustration when we have it this way, when we see it this way around happening. But the risk is also that you find a dominant partner. Again, the house 4, the field 4, with JUNO there, that need is showing the need for a safe relationship. So the relationship is even the foundation for all activities, because Aries is the active part of the chart. So they need a very well-founded relationship to act from that safe place, so to say. They also feel the idealism, which is of course also the symbolize of JUNO, as I said before. They have the imagination of the partner as the breadwinner, the nurturer. So they should go out and get money and all the food and everything to make life safe. So whereas they themselves stay inside as the female, as the wife, and raising children, for example. This is the old role. They tend to have this role of a partner, that the partner needs to go out and find the money and the wealth and the outcome, the money and the to make affordable life. Yeah. So in this case with H4 we have JUNO, the relationships often living out or being happening in private life and in family, because 4 is also symbolizing the roots and the family life. So the very intimate part of the chart, where we have more our privacy. So this may be relationships with JUNO in 4th, that they will live that not in outgoing, in outer relationship, but more in matrimony or in relationships in private life, which can also be other partners, not only the life partner. So this is very quickly a little interpretation, which is of course, again, not sufficient. It's only to give you an idea of these 4 goddesses, how you can interpret them in a sign and in a field. Next one, the last one, we have one left, is VESTA. You can see the open fire, which of course symbolizes the hearth fire as the symbol of the eternal flame. So it's also a very important goddess, although there's not so much domination and so much greatness around Vesta, but it's of course a very important symbolism, because it stands also for the inner flame, for the life as such, where we live our life, where we have our energy, where we develop our inner flame. And this, as I said, as living with other sisters and with equal women, she makes the feminine energy of a sister. Associations with the zodiac signs is Virgo, because Virgo symbolizes the practical and dedicated partner. This makes sense when you think about Virgo. And Scorpio again, which is on the other side, the committed and faithful partner. So you can see parallel here, the symbols even, because the M, which is 1, the symbol for Virgin, for Virgo, is showing the M with the inner file going inwards. And for Scorpio, the fire going outwards, which is more going to the partner, to the spouse. So these two are very similar symbols, Virgo and Scorpio. Of course, there's a sign in between, which came in between them, which is Libra. And this is the symbol which was rising or getting more importance during the patriarchalic worldview in the ancient times. And it also symbolizes the matrimony. This is the symbol of Libra. And this is in between. So we have the virgin and the spouse, which needs to be combined with the Libra in between, which is standing for the bond, for the matrimony, for the holy bond, which is seen also in the outside. These two people are together. These two people are building a parent or building a couple. So this is also a very interesting and impressive symbol in this whole context. It's much more complex with Vesta, but I only touched some of the interpretations. There's much more to say about Vesta. It's a very complex energy, but only to give you an idea. In the chart, we have a Vesta in the example also in Taurus, near Ceres. So it's located in Taurus, which needs to be said that Vesta is also the energy of the work. So it focuses on work, which makes them often say in astrology that it can be the new ruler of Virgo, because Vesta is so much associated with the Virgo energy. This is not discussed if this discussion is not finished, not ended now, because there are still, Virgo is still with Gemini together, ruled by Mercury, but we can say that in the future time, it makes a lot of sense that Vesta can be can become the ruler of Virgo. But this is only a side comment. So focus on the work energy is best achieved for this people with Vesta in Taurus, in the earth sign Taurus, when they can rely on an unchanging space. So what is meant by that? When you think of a laboratory for a scientist, that will be a space where they know all the tools, where they know the schedule, where they know where to do what, and everything is on a place, on a foreseen place, and they love to work in these kind of surrounding. People with the Vesta in Taurus, but also you can imagine like a atelier for artists. They have their own atelier. Also important, the independence, their own atelier, and they can do and paint and compose something of their own, which is in the end tangible, which they can view it and which they can say, this is my piece, this is my art piece, this is my result, this is what I did. Also in the garden, where they have their own garden, where they can plant and grow plants. All this unchanging surroundings will make a lot of sense for Vesta, because they can focus with Taurus, they can focus very much on their energy, and the output is much higher when they have this surrounding where they can always rely on as well. Also, like therapists, they have their own room where they do their consultings, which this can also be a very good defined room where they work. This is also possible. Or a medicine, a doctor who has his own operating place for surgery or something like that. So you get the idea, I think, of the Vesta in Taurus meaning. Sexually, we can also say that the Vesta in Taurus is based on organic release of natural instincts. So whenever they can live out with haptic touching and with lustful and very direct touchings and doing that really physically, then they are very much in their sexuality. When they do it idealistic, or they have to reject or postpone their sexuality, then they get stressed. Yet, so to say, they need a physical partner, so to say, and a good functioning sexuality, let's say. Having this in the 7th house of partnerships, their work energy, in this case, for this person, is very well invested in partnerships. So when they find partners where they can live their freedom, it's fine. But every time when there are conflicts with a work partner, a life partner, some other partners, when they have 1-1 partnerships, let's say in the 7th house, which is also standing for 1-1 partnerships, when there are conflicts, then they get their freedom challenged. And when they have to make compromises or cooperations in any way, then they feel a little bit stressed because their freedom and their independence, which they need a lot, as I said already, with this free space where they can do what they want and everything is very well kept by them, then they get stress in a partnership. But on the other side, with Taurus as a very steady and standing and a fixed energy, we have often people who stay with one single partner for a whole lifetime, even with problems and obstacles in the partnership. This can also be said for this VESTA placement. So with this, I want to close the presentation, but I want to say that there are some similarities between the zodiac signs. You see that often zodiac signs like Taurus, Scorpio, Libra, and sometimes also Virgo, they are very often mentioned here because they all